Pandemonium reigns.
Pandemonium Reigns podcast. What is up? Happy Friday once again. We are here doing this thing. We are just again talking off season, talking good. There's really no bad. Let's be honest. There's really no bad. Baseball, one loss to start the season. Basketball, 1-0 to begin the 4-game gauntlet that ends the season with one of the best all-time basketballers in the midst of a heater. Football, winning in court. Nico eligible. Spring practice, 16 days away. People, we are 16 days out from spring practice number one because it is March, which is bananas. We are 1/6 of the way through 2024, and if those 2 months are any indication, we'll be watching football before we know it. But that's not all that we're here to talk about today. Like I mentioned, and disclaimer, we obviously don't talk a ton of basketball because what can we say? Your boys we're busy guys. It's hard to get one episode out a week. It's definitely hard to talk when you get into multiple games a week. But obviously, we got to have a small conversation about basketball at minimum. They're doing things that are defying some of the narratives, that at least the preconceived narratives and notions of my mind when I think about Rick Barnes' teams in general, not just at Tennessee, but in general, but especially with the Tennessee teams, the droughts that even the best teams at times could go through offensively. Boy, they're still happening. I mean, they do happen, but they're not costing Tennessee games the way that they have over other years. Obviously, the South Carolina game we would love back. The one in Knoxville, the loss, Mississippi State game early in SEC play, we would love that back. And I think, frankly, games against the other three losses, your North Carolina, Kansas, Purdue, I think those would be a little bit different if they were played out again. And there's obviously a potential in March when the tournament arrives that you could see some of those again. One thing about them is I think it is obviously very tough for Adu, Awaka to play against big men of the caliber that those teams possess in Baycott, Dickinson, Edie, who's the most frustrating player to watch ever. And it's so frustrating to think that he'll be the one to take away Player of the Year honors from Dalton Connect, most likely, because Connect, what can we say? I mean, we've not seen anyone in his realm, I would firmly say, since Chris Lofton. When you talk about consistency, when you talk about 30-plus point games, that's been rare air in my lifetime of watching Tennessee basketball. I was talking to my old man who's watched Tennessee basketball for obviously since before I was born, and obviously there are legends. There's Bernard King, there's Ernie Grunfeld, there's Dell Ellis, there's so many guys, Tony Watt. There's so many guys that have come through. Allen Houston, don't want to forget him. But Dalton Connect is just bringing flashes maybe of all those guys. He's doing Chris Lofton type things with the caveat that he's like 4 to 6 inches taller and can dunk on your head and still shoot over someone like Janai Broom, who is frankly another one of those really good post players that Adu and Awaka have had to contend with. And Tennessee finally got a win in such a game. You know what I mean? I know I mentioned the other losses. I don't know what else could have been done necessarily in College Station, because that was quite a buzzsaw situation, and you saw Tennessee get vengeance at home, a couple days ago. But what a tear they're on! Loving it, very hopeful. Not in my usual mindset of gosh, March is just going to hurt. The SEC tournament's just going to hurt. It could, and ultimately one team walks away a champion out of a field of 68 that are all do-or-die situations, but you've got to have hope when you talk about Connect, when you talk about times that other guys have picked him up this season, even though that's not been the norm, and he's really not had many off nights to really talk about. But, I mean, it's a deep squad. Adu and Awaka playing some good ball right now. Ziegler playing some of the best pure point guard ball that again, talking about my lifetime, talking about mainly, Bruce Pearl and beyond because of the bad before then. Though there were moments in my life and obviously well before it, but playing some of the best pure one guard basketball that there is. Can hit it from deep. He is so clean with distributing the ball, so fierce on defense. You love to see it. And then you talk about the bench. When you bring a defender, an all-around player at times like Meshack off the bench, when you bring a Gainey in who can hit at least that one three-pointer over there on that side of the court, if you know what I'm talking about. Things are really encouraging. You've got the veteran leadership of Vescovy and JJJ, and I just think anything that they give you is magical and really makes this team feel different and play different at times. And it's beautiful to see. But Dalton Knecht, man, just at times carrying the state of Tennessee on his shoulders. It's so fun when someone is when he gets a microphone in his face, so humble, but is such a killer when the lights are on, when the game is live. He's such a killer. He will shoot on you no matter where you're at, who you are, doesn't matter. And that's been fun and big to see. I'd like to just present a scenario where Tennessee football, let's say Tennessee football closed the season out with a similar stretch of, in this case, Auburn at home, at Alabama, at South Carolina, hosting Kentucky. And in this situation, Auburn is Auburn. Auburn might be, because they rank so well offensively and defensively, they might be like a historical or an Alabama of late where they're just loaded and they perform really well statistically, and you get them at home to start a 4-game stretch. Then you go to Alabama. That's like you go to who's the number one offense in the country or really in the SEC. It's an SEC slate. So you go to, again, you name it. You go to an offensive juggernaut. You go to Ole Miss, where Lane Kiffin's got it firing on all cylinders offensively. And then you go to the upstart program. So let's say you go to Missouri from 2023, or you go to, you name it. You go to the upstart program of the year at their place. Obviously, you don't play anybody twice in the regular season in football, but, think about it. And then you close with one of your most bitter rivals, another team who can absolutely dominate offensively, is not at all quite there on the whole of the season defensively in Kentucky. Just imagine if Tennessee football closed out a stretch like that. It would be like the 2020 season where it was all SEC, and you're vying for a playoff spot. Obviously, it's different with how different the fields are, but just imagine a scenario where you closed out your regular season like that, and you're contending to win the conference outright, win a tie for it, a share of it, which, again, we won't see in football because someone's going to have either a head-to-head victory or there's going to be a tiebreaker down the line. And that, a lot of that will be decided tomorrow in Tuscaloosa against a team who can score 110 on any given night. And they will test you because they will shoot from any. They have the connect mentality even if they don't hit that shot that night. They're going to jack it up. They're going to run and gun. It's going to be a dunk, a layup, a runner, or a three. And then they're going to get to the free throw line, usually a ton, because of, again, that style of play. And again, no matter what happens, you're talking about the upstart program of the year who has looked really, the turnaround at South Carolina has been phenomenal, and you're going to close it out with an offensive juggernaut who is, I thought, coming into their best ball of the year prior to the LSU loss, which was crazy because of the lead that they had at points in that game and because of the game-winning shot that was hit. But again, Kentucky can fill up the basket. It is, again, it's your most hated rival in basketball. Nobody's beaten them more times than you have. So there's no need for really any, the storylines write themselves. The drama writes itself. It is a soap opera. There's Calipari on the sidelines, whining and moaning and flailing and crying, and you've already beat them at their place, which I'm sure they're thrilled about because of the way their season's gone. And that's what you close your season out with. Knecht is going to need to average 25 in my mind, minimum. He's obviously proven so capable of doing that, but it's going to be so wildly fun to sit and take it in as we go from here. But yeah, had to touch on the stretch that remains, the impressive, very nice win over Auburn when you looked in danger and you looked at peril of an offensive drought in the middle of that game when they flipped your 9 point lead, I think it was, into a 6 or 8 point lead of their own. Not a entire scoreless run for Tennessee, but nasty one nonetheless. With a foul up and down the court every trip. It was lovely basketball there to start the second half. And I know we don't talk about them enough, so going to go ahead and do that today since we have the opportunity. Since we're again just trucking through the football off season. And again, give them a shout out. Obviously hoping for the best during the brutal run to close the season, and then hoping to get hot wherever March takes them. I don't know that the last number 1 seed benefits you all that much more than the first number 2 seed, just in terms of who could be in your bracket. Maybe the pressure of the first number 1 seed in school history. I don't know. But I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see what happens. It's a lot more hopeful of a scenario for me than it is sometimes. What's going to happen? How are we going to get put out this year? Could happen. One team wins it all. And Tennessee's never done it. So let's just see what happens. Let's enjoy the ride. Let's enjoy every waking second of number 3 in orange and the beautiful cream that we saw on Wednesday night. Those kits are disgustingly good. And let's see where it goes. Can't wait to see the outcome here. Also, want to go ahead and take this moment to tell you about our friends, our sponsor, North Forsyth Training and Fitness, NFTF, located 4015 Brownsbridge Road. And if you're in the Cumming area, you need a new gym, you need a change to your life physically, you need a gym where you'll be with your community and with your friends, NFTF is the place for you. Owner, head coach Jesse Foster, he's got all the credentials and experience to help you reach those goals and provide that spot for you. Morning classes running 5:30, 7:30, and 9. Afternoon classes 3:30, 4:30, 5:30, and 6:30. There is surely a class in that time frame that will fit your schedule. Be that community-driven gym for you. And if you want to check them out, if you're, again, looking for that in your life, give Jesse Foster a call today, 706-633-6609. Make sure to let him know that the boys at Pandemonium Reigns Podcast sent you. All right, let's talk about what is going on in the football universe. The predominant conversation lately, I have ranted about it. Every show that you've tuned into, you've heard questions about it. You've heard some similar rants about it. I mean, I think I'm up there for hate level for the NCAA, but you've heard the rants, and we finally have the decision with Tennessee obviously winning the TRO, the injunction. The initial win goes to Tennessee over the NCAA. Shocker, I know. Everybody was saying the NCAA was going to win for sure. I really want to start this segment today with a frigid, Antarctic level cold take by none other than everyone's favorite follow on Twitter and X when it comes to college football and sports. Blue Bloods Bias, at Blue Bloods Bias is the at there. Blue Bloods Bias. That is a tongue twister on a Friday morning. And this goes back, of course, to when everything was brand new and, the world was falling according to Pat Forty and those that we will not get into again. Just in summary, Tennessee is about to get hammered by the NCAA over their recruitment of Nico Iamaleava. Here's why this could get ugly. It was announced that day that the NCAA was investigating Tennessee, the third program under investigation from the NCAA this month, as the league cracks down on NIL rule breakers. Yeah. Last week, it was announced the NCAA was looking at Florida, similar to Nico's recruitment for Jaden Rashada and his recruitment to Florida, where he did not land, of course. goes into the 4-year, $8 million contract that Blue Bloods bias knows all about. Clearly for Nico, points out that these NIL deals would have been illegal at the time. Big old graphic. He's in trouble. Nico's face on it. That feels libelous. That feels like it might come up in a different court case at some point if it was worth the time. Comments were turned off, last week or so when the decision favored Tennessee in that classic 5 p.m. Friday news dump. One of the other great aspects of this is the tweet at the time was a repost by Pat Forty, not an article, not a bunch of conjecture and speculation and ill wishes, not well wishes, ill wishes from Pat Forty for his boys at the NCAA in Indianapolis to take down Tennessee, but simply a repost of Adam Sparks, who is one of the GOATs in Knoxville media for the fine details and the true meat and potatoes of what happens in things like this. And his quote, a whopping Tennessee gets a win versus the NCAA. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words and a repost. When again the original story, story is such a kind word for what he wrote that day and that at the time of that investigation coming out. Ill wish. I'm just gonna go with ill wish. They were soured for old Patty Forty. Much to his chagrin, I'm sure he hated to see it. And, there's others that are right there with him. Not as many as those who are, kind of stepping on the grave and spitting on the grave of the NCAA. And look, I'm not going to ignore the fact that if the deal with Nico, if Nico's recruitment was wrong, and I don't think it was wrong because I don't think it was different, if it was, that could obviously have huge changes for the sport and the sports that we love. If the NCAA goes away, it's going to really, really be tough for your non-Power 4 or Power 5 Blue Bloods, or not even Blue Bloods, your programs with either a pulse or the backing of a large, financial conference. And I'm, including the guys that sneak in to situations like that, your Vanderbilts, maybe your Rutgers, that sneak into a big conference that are holding on there due to tradition and history of being in those conferences. It's going to be a real tricky, tough situation if you're not one of those teams, potentially, if the NCAA dies, if there's a split. I recognize that, but the alternative, the correct alternative is not to punish Tennessee for a recruitment that is industry standard. I mean, come on, somebody, that is above table. When I've talked about all the below table deals, the suitcases, the handshakes, the actual McDonald's bags in Knoxville or otherwise, is not the better alternative to above board, above table, somebody else figuring out how to manage it and rule it, because again, it ain't the NCAA, it ain't Indianapolis right now. I don't envy their jobs, but they've done this so much largely to themselves, largely in part to themselves. I mean, come on. I don't have the sympathy. Y'all know this. There's no need to do it again, but Tennessee gets a shocking win in this situation in the initial ruling. The proper language, Tennessee and Virginia, the state and Commonwealth, respectfully, have won their preliminary injunction against the NCAA. Booster-funded NIL collectives can now communicate with high school recruits and transfer portal players in the two states. I mean, tell me that's not been happening. Tell me this is new. I know the term collective is new / synonymous with NIL, but below table, greater than sign, below table. It's that simple for me. I think that is the way to future parity. If we don't see it right away, don't be shocked. You're still, even if things are above board or above table instead of below table, when you've got all-out efforts, and when I think about all-out efforts, I think about like Ohio State, and I know I've talked about this, or I think I have, but the high school class that they put together, I would say, obviously they took some hits via losses in the portal, but when they went so aggressively, Quinshon Judkins, the Kansas State quarterback, from last year, Will Howard, being right there waiting for Julian Sayin and taking his recruitment, and that was a guy, and I know that all programs, including Alabama, talk about prospects like Julian Sayin in terms of the future, different prospect. There's all that, right? So you're gonna what I'm getting at is you're gonna have programs, especially with NIL collective and fan support being maybe the future. You're gonna have programs that go all out like that, and it could prevent parity, and it could create some really dang good teams. But bring it above the table, bring it above board, figure out a way. It's obviously not going to be immediate. There is nothing in place right now, especially with the NCAA taking a hit, to govern, to monitor. Give me a way to do that, and give me a way to do that without saying these are now, this is 2024. Here's your rules for NIL in August of 2021. If you broke them, we're going to kill you. You're going to be handcuffed and hit with sanctions and the good old the Joyce investigations, the lengthy processes that just never end, all that good, lovely stuff. But I mean, again, I'll take this alternative. I'll take my chances with it, and I'll roll from there. I really will. It is that simple for me. I've ranted on here about it 2 to 3, 4 times now, and perhaps we're getting towards the end of it. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. On to the NFL Combine, taking place again, oddly enough, in Indianapolis, the place of the target of some of my rants in the NCAA situations and the unfortunate home of the NCAA. On the NFL Combine, Tennessee, obviously, with only 3 guys headed there this year, and it's currently taking place. This is the week of it. We're rapidly approaching the draft. But Kamal Hadden, Joe Milton, Jalen Wright, headed to the Combine. Would love to see a situation where one of the tight ends made it. Would have loved for Mel Keaton to have played his way to the Combine. Largely based on his work, how big it was, how vital it was in 2022. Replacing Cedric Tillman, being a vital part of wins, Alabama and Florida. I mean, the 2 biggest wins of the year, arguably. Would have loved for him to play his way into the Combine. Was not in the cards. I think there is some blame to go around in multiple areas with some of Joe's inconsistencies, some of the ways I think that either limited play calls or how much they trusted him with. With Ramel, obviously the drops are killer when you look at Virginia, when you look at Texas A&M. That play that they schemed up for Ramel was just top notch, and he didn't deliver. And it makes me wonder if some of those plays were executed, if he had more of a 2022 type of year, if he hadn't been able to maybe play himself into the Combine at least, and to get a chance to really show out for the greatest job interview of his life to this point, no matter what his prior history is. Really hate that. Really thought a lot again of Ramel and love what he gave for the program. Love anytime a guy comes from, coming from a Jeremy Pruitt recruit or previously, a Butch or a Dooley recruit, and then doing work for the next staff always means a lot to the fans, we know. And again, he just delivered so many clutch, so many vital moments along the way. So appreciate him for those. Do obviously, and it goes for everyone, but wish him the very best. Going forward, whether that includes football, whether it doesn't, whether it means moving on to the next stage of life. Couple more quick things as I start to land the plane, and kind of speaking of Kamal Hadden, saw a couple tweets from Kamal back in towards the latter part of January. You've probably heard everybody else as much as I've ranted about the NCAA. Not tweeting at players, very important, right? But the reason for this is, let's say Kamal Hadden goes into the NFL. He has a Emmanuel Mosley or a Cam Sutton or a better, a better professional career than he did at Tennessee, or a more consistent one at least. And he becomes a recruiting tool for Tennessee. He becomes someone that Martinez or Banks, you name it, the future coaches that maybe they replace those guys down the line if those guys get poached, or if they go elsewhere, if they retire. A recruiting tool. It's very important to be able to point to guys, especially at a recruit's position, and say, look at him, look at how we got him there, look at the way his career transformed as he was here. So that's the reason, obviously, that I want to just mention this, because of these tweets that kind of made me wince a little bit when I saw them from Kamal. The first one, late not thought. Out of 3 years, I got scored on 3 times, and out of 20-something games, y'all, I'm sure he's talking about fans, only talk about 2. LOL, what's up with that? And then he mentioned 2021, South Alabama and Purdue, 2022, South Carolina. His last tweet in the little thread, and the stats say I did what every player should do, which is each year drastically improve. So, and you cannot deny that he was playing absolutely his best ball up to and including at Alabama when he suffered that injury. I think he wanted to keep going, and it just wasn't doable. Obviously required surgery. Obviously ended his career at Tennessee, unfortunately, because, again, of the turnaround that he had shown. Now, here's the difference, I think. You cannot put a kid on blast and think that they won't see it. We know that players search their names. We know that players block fans of their school based on a hot take or a fiery tweet that you put off in a minute. And I'm sitting here, I'll never forget the missed tackle in the swamp. How that might have changed momentum in that game and made it to where Tennessee won in the swamp without 20 years going by. You know what I mean? I'll never forget those things. But what I won't do, and what I would encourage everyone to not do, is to send off a tweet that the alternative of being used as a recruiting tool and a positive for your program as a turnaround, as a guy that you helped dramatically, is him talking to the prospect and saying, well, look at what they'll say about you. And it happens everywhere. We know this. That's not an excuse to do it. And I'm not trying to preach or say that I don't think these things, but again, we just got to have some self-awareness in how it can impact recruiting, thinking that they may not see it. Maybe you have a big follower base, maybe you don't, but they're going to search their name. They're going to see it. You're thinking it. We're all thinking it in the moment. I mean, in Athens in 2022, I was Hendon, what are you doing? What are you doing, bro? Is my thoughts, right? Would never say that, obviously, because of the good. The good outweighs the bad no matter what. And that obviously wasn't always the case for Kamal Hadden like it was for other players, especially including Hendon Hooker. But these things are seen, they are out there, and again, that's I think as negative as some of the positives can be down the line. Started this episode Fridays, right? Started this episode off talking about the positivity that there is no bad. There is no bad to be found, right? Baseball, rocking, basketball, cruising right now, about to really, really meet the rubber and the road there. Football, obviously huge, hopeful expectations. I don't think you can go without acknowledging one Danny White. The good has followed him. I mean, you talk about hiring Lance Leipold and I believe Nate Oates at Buffalo. In situations like this, again, going to bring a Twitter post into the realm here. We've got at Will T. Tenpenny tweeting, personally think AD Danny White and the team need to create a big atmosphere outside the stadium with Jumbotron, tailgating, and player connection before after the spring game. Give people the hype they want for Nico and co. And again, tell me a time when athletic director Philip Fulmer, Mike Hamilton, old balls from Alabama, tell me a time that those guys would be able to create atmospheres and make positive changes on campus, let alone a solid hire. And look, we know John Curry brought us Tony Vitello. That's the one good thing, right? We know that Fulmer, he didn't do crap as AD. We know that. Danny White quotes it. We're on it. Pre- and post-game concerts in Lot 9, big screens to watch the spring game, as well as the baseball game. By the way, it's defending national champion LSU, who there's a little bit of bad blood with, a lot of beating each other up since Vitello's been in Knoxville. Big screens to watch the spring game, as well as the baseball game later that evening. Obviously, Danny wishes we could host more than 10, 15,000 people in Neyland with the things, but unfortunately, this is the cost of progress, limiting the fans, obviously. Went on to say, still plenty of opportunity for tailgating, music, football, baseball, and Big Orange Fellowship. Looking forward to a fun day on Rocky Top. Tell me a time, folks. Tell me a time. Give me a date range, a year range, where we had this kind of synergy, where it was flowing and going. I mean, where the positivity, where we look at G-Man Vols on Twitter or X. Go to his appreciation or approval rating tweets. They're out of the world. They're out of this world for baseball, for basketball, for football, for AD. The AD is not a popular guy on a lot of campuses because you should have hired this guy. You should have done this. You should have done that. We should have been able to come to the spring game. It should be free. It's often a lose-lose position, and my man is a certified rock star at it, fixing the funds, fixing up the stadiums, doing all the things and doing them well. And just want to recognize that. I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate that. I thought he hired his buddy when he hired Josh Heupel, and I mean, he might have hired the savior of Tennessee football. We'll see. Time will tell. But yeah, that'll do it for this week. We're making it through this offseason. Like I said at the start, 16 days until spring practice number 1. That means we're going to see little cut-up videos of Nico throwing a swing pass, throwing a slant, throwing it deep, a route on air, hitting up squirrel. We're going to see the new blood, the transfer blood. We're going to see video of it. And then eventually we're going to see some pads pop and some red jerseys, some no-contact jerseys, no doubt, to protect the guys like Nico who we can't afford to lose and such. We're days away. We're 2 weeks away, basically. Relish it. Let's enjoy and support the heck out of this basketball and baseball team. That's a wasted statement because Vol Nation does nothing better than support their own. But it was a fun little chat, fun little check-in. Can't wait to do it again. Until that time, thank you for checking out Pandemonium Range Podcast. Go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, especially on the YouTubes. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. God bless. GBO.